Welcome to the Student Media Tailgate Show, as I'm Kramer Sansone along with Justin Quick and Nolan Brooks. Huge win last week for Northwest, defeating Grand Valley as the score was 42-17. Guys, what we saw on last week was completely different from what we were trying to talk about on last week on the Tailgate Show, as the final score with it being 42-17. Huge win for Northwest. So how did this even happen for Northwest to beat Grand Valley this bad?
I mean, the run game showed up, and it showed up strong in the second half. First half was kind of a little bit of adjustment period for the Bearcats. They were kind of getting settled into being on the road, playing in Grand Valley, and just kind of getting settled into the playoff atmosphere for a couple of the younger guys. But I think once the run game kind of got them settled in and showed up in the second half, they ended up with about 356 yards rushing. So, I mean, if you run like that, you're going to have a very good shot of winning any game, no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I know that's something we preached on last week. If Northwest is really going to exploit the Grand Valley defense, especially in the elements that we talked about, they're going to have to run the ball, and they're going to have to run the ball well. And I'd say they ran the ball well and then some. 171 yards from Isaiah Strayhorn is outstanding, and I don't see Northwest losing. If we're going to have two players over 100 yards rushing, I don't see Northwest losing, so that was a great game for Northwest.
As Isaiah Strayhorn had a 83-yard touchdown run, which kind of brought his running yards up. I'd like to mention, too, that Braden at the beginning of the game didn't look like Braden Wright we were going to see fumbled the ball that ended up getting a score for Grand Valley, and he also threw an interception. As at halftime it was 14-10, and then after that the running game took off for Northwest. As we mentioned, Isaiah Strayhorn had a huge carry. He ended up with 171 yards with 2 touchdowns. Josh Caldwell had 147 yards with 2 touchdowns. Two of the big factors in that game were those two guys. And when we talked about last week, it was cold, and the fumble happened with Braden Wright. Is this going to happen again when they play Ferris State? Is the cold going to be a factor, do you guys think?
I don't think it'll be too much of a factor. I think it was more of Braden trying to settle into his first playoff game. He's a redshirt freshman, so he hasn't been in this kind of atmosphere yet. Obviously, he played at Pitt, and that was probably the closest of an atmosphere that he's seen to this kind of playoff atmosphere. So I think it was just more of him kind of getting settled in. We saw once he got past that fumble and the interception, they didn't use him much. He only threw the ball 13 times. And he was under pressure a lot. They sacked him 5 times. So, I mean, that was also something that affected him quite a bit. But I think they're going to stick with that running game. You mentioned Strayhorn. Aside from that, 80-yard touchdown he still averaged over 9 yards a carry if you take that away. So he was effective all game. And Caldwell, too, having 147 yards on 15 carries alone, both of them having a couple touchdowns. I think that's a recipe for success for them. And I think Braden is just going to have to do what he can, hit a few screen plays, hit a few maybe deep balls to Bain or to Tatum or someone like that, and just do what he can to help the run game along, so it helps ease the pressure of the defenders in the box.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we also talked about last week, was that this is going to be his first playoff game, and we don't know how well he's going to perform. I mean, that's no bash on him, but that's really the harsh reality of being a true freshman quarterback in your first playoff game, is coming in, being able to perform to the level that they recruited you for. And, I mean, I'm not saying he did a bad job, but that's definitely not the kind of quarterback that is truly leading a team the way he wants it. I know that was not the way he wanted to perform. I don't think it's going to affect him too much going into this next game. He has a great set of teammates around him, great core, and Rich Wright is definitely going to be that coach figure for him that shows him, this is who you are, this is how you perform, this is why I brought you here, and you can be that leader for us, and you can lead us to a win, and I think that's what's going to happen.
And mention a little bit about Sean Bain, as he opened the scoring with a 50-yard touchdown to pass by Wright. And it's something that Coach Wright said at the media luncheon last week, as there's these they have their defenses set up to where big plays are going to happen, and we saw the big play happen early in that game. And another thing to switch over as well is the defense for Northwest, only giving up only 108 yards, 128 yards total, but 108 yards to the starting quarterback for Grand Valley, which is kind of his big thing is they pass the ball. And it was good to see that defense step up and what they did, and they held them to the low number that they got.
Yeah, their defense showed up to play for sure, and I think they gave up around 260 or 270 yards total, which if you're doing that and then you're running the ball like Northwest was, it's a very good recipe for success, and they were able to take advantage of the deep shots that Grand Valley was taking and get a couple picks. I know Jack Richards had a couple interceptions, which really helped them kind of turn things around early on and later in the game as well. And you look at the team leaders and tackles. You had Ben Altoff, the linebacker, with 12, Anthony Lane and Jack Richards, both your safeties there with 10 and 9. And so you got both those guys being really aggressive at the line of scrimmage, and I think that's really going to help Northwest when they play. Teams that like to run the ball, they have that there, but then they also have Richards and Lane back there for the deep ball threats as well.
Yeah, I really think that Northwest did an outstanding job against Grand Valley, really pressuring the quarterback, and I know we said that that's what they needed to do. If you're going to win this game when it's cold out and you know there's going to be more running, you got to pressure the quarterback. I mean, they sacked him 4 times. I know Braden Wright got sacked 5 times, but we also sacked their quarterback 4 times. So that's really showing that this Northwest defense is who they say they are. They show up every week on the numbers and when you watch them. So if Northwest is going to continue on this path of, putting up this many points and only allowing, 13 or 17, I think it's going to really clear out a path for them. When your defense shows up like that and shuts down an entire team on that side of the ball, that really allows for your offensive side to come out and exploit their defense, because now they're a little rattled that they can't even score on the offensive side of the ball. And that's something that's going to need to continue if Northwest wants this kind of progression throughout the playoffs.
So we ended up talking to Coach Wright on the media luncheon. So here's Coach Wright talking about the win over Grand Valley.
It was fantastic to see us have a struggle early and then come out the other side, because more than anything, that's the thing that we have not been able to do on offense is start to struggle for a little bit. We had the one explosive play with Sean, and I felt like that really captured some momentum, but then they answered. We had the 2 turnovers, and, again, with a young quarterback, sometimes you worry about that. And, we found a way. We adjusted, we adapted, we started to hit them with some things, and then once we did, I think our kids finally saw exactly how good we could be when we start to fire on all cylinders, and it was fun to sit back and watch.
So that was Coach Wright talking about the win over Grand Valley, and now, as it is going to be Ferris State taking on Northwest back to make another trip up to Michigan, and going to be another big game as Ferris State, duly noted, as they played an ineligible player, Dan Perry, through the first 4 games of the season. Because of that, that's why they dropped from number 1 seed to a number 2 seed. So this is why we're going to see Ferris State taking on Northwest.
At least this early in the bracket, we figured they might match up if Northwest was able to advance sometime in the bracket, but get to see them in the second round, and they had a tough win over Harding the last week. They 21-19 over Harding, and it was really a game where Ferris State looked like they were going to dominate. They were up 21-0 early, and then Harding made a run in the fourth quarter to kind of make it close. And maybe we're kind of pulling for Harding to maybe see a Northwest home game, get to see another Northwest playoff home game, but Ferris State was able to hold on, and they match up this weekend.
Yeah, Ferris State getting in trouble for that ineligible player, I think, really changed their path. Obviously, they didn't get a bye week, and now they're number 2 seed, and they had to play in a first week. So I think that's something Northwest has to prepare for, because Ferris State didn't get a bye week. They know what playoff football is going to be like this year, and they're definitely going to come ready to play. With Ferris only getting 85 yards passing in that game, I'm sure that's not the norm for them, because they're going to come out and they're going to play hard, and they're going to try to put away everybody else in this bracket, because, even before they were in trouble, they were going to be a number 1 seed for a good reason. They're a really good football team, and don't be surprised if this game's a little bit closer than the Grand Valley game.
As you mentioned that the Ferris State did beat Harding 21-19. All Harding's points came in the fourth quarter, and Harding's a team that runs the ball. They have the triple option, and we've seen teams try to do that against Northwest. And what happened with Ferris State is it broke them down. But Northwest is a running team, and the way that they ran against the Grand Valley might give the edge to Northwest in this game, but we'll break more of the comparisons down later in the show. But last time Northwest played Ferris State was in 2016, the semifinals, where Northwest won 35-20 at home, as Ferris handed Grand Valley State its lone regular season loss on the season. So something common right now is Ferris State and Northwest beat Grand Valley, so this is going to be a nice head-on-head collision coming up, since they both seen the team of Grand Valley.
If you look at those games between Grand Valley, though, they were really two completely different games. Northwest almost kind of dominated Grand Valley 42-17. Even not looking at the scoreboard, you look at the stats, and they almost doubled their yardage and everything. And Ferris State, they kind of snuck by Grand Valley. It was a 35-31 win, and it was a lot closer game. So, obviously that's not going to tell you who's going to win this game between Ferris and Northwest, but just looking at those two games, Grand Valley gave them a really good run for their money. It was in Allendale, Michigan, so it was a Grand Valley home game, so that might affect how Ferris plays on the road versus, at home. But I think like Nolan said, I think it's going to be a lot closer game than Northwest against Grand Valley was.
Yeah, that really is something that I think is going to affect it overall, like Justin just said. This is going to be a home game for Ferris State. This isn't going to be an away game. And that's something that Northwest, I'm sure, is prepared for. They're the road dogs for a reason. We saw how they performed against Grand Valley. They know what it means to go out on the road and shut a team down that is really picked to beat Northwest, because I know that no one pictured this game being that way. And I think Ferris State watched that game closely and is really going to pick apart what Northwest did well in that game, and they're going to bring that to the table, and they're going to try and shut down our running backs, and that's something that Braden Wright needs to look at, and he needs to know that, okay, they're going to shut down our running game this game, and I need to come out and I need to perform, hit home run passes, make sure my check down passes are on point and are complete, and really exploit the defense through the air, because the run game might not be as powerful as it was this past game.
As that's something to consider for Coach Wright, as he did talk at the media luncheon on this upcoming matchup against Ferris State. So here's Coach Wright talking about Ferris State.
So every game is kind of its own entity, so to speak, and it's how you match up with your opponent. And Ferris will be unique. Yes, they're the same conference and the same league, but the challenges and the things that they're going to present. First of all, a running quarterback versus a pocket quarterback is going to be drastically different. So where it helps, I think, is what I joked about on the other side is we're going to be in a routine as far as how we travel. We've been to Grand Rapids now. We're going to get off the plane. We know exactly where we're going because we stayed at the same hotel last week. Our structure is all going to be the same, so we don't have to think about any of those things. I don't have to plan that stuff. It was all done it was all set up right away. So our focus can now be on the task at hand, and it's formidable playing against Ferris State.
So that was a Coach Wright talking about Ferris State, as there's going to be more to come, as well as we're going to break down the offenses and defenses here. So we'll be right back here, and you're listening to the Tailgate Show on KNWT.
Bearcat Outdoors is a show that captures the memories that are made with family and friends while enjoying everything the outdoors has to offer. We will be in pursuit of a variety of game and sharing the experiences along the way. Check it out Monday through Thursday at 6:50 on KNWT Channel 8. Also, don't forget to follow along on all our social media for full access of everything Channel 8 has to offer.
And I was like, whoa, this is really cool that people actually like know my song.
Hello!
We're the hosts of KNWT.
Make sure you check out all of our
Beautiful faces.
and amazing student-made content
every Monday through Thursday
on KNWT Channel 8 and our YouTube channel, KNWT TV.
You heard it here first. Welcome back to the Student Media Tailgate Show, as I'm Kramer Sansone along with Justin Quick and Nolan Brooks, as we're talking about Ferris State and Northwest, the big matchup coming up later on today. As let's go through this offensive comparison through both sides. It's the tail of the tape on the offensive side. As yards per game, the edge is going to go to Ferris State, as they have 486 yards per game compared to that 432 that Northwest does. And if you want to also compare that rushing yards, give it to Ferris State. Passing yards to Ferris State, and then points per game. It's that little edge for Northwest by only, 0.4 tenths or whatever it is. I'm not good with math right now, but still, just a slight edge for Northwest on those points per game, as this is going to be not a struggle for Northwest, but something to overcome.
They're both teams that have the ability to put up a lot of points quickly, with both of them, you said, being around 37, a little over 37 points per game. The decimal is kind of hit or miss, so no worry on that. But Ferris State is a very balanced team, as is Northwest. They both average over 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing. So, I mean, it's going to be something that Northwest is going to have to deal with going, switching from a Grand Valley team that liked to throw the ball a lot to now being with a more balanced team that they have seen a few of this season, but I don't think they've seen the caliber of Ferris State. And I think how they deal with that on the back end and with the front seven is going to kind of decide this game.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said before, Ferris State only having 85 yards passing in their first round game was not their norm. 220 yards passing a game, that's a pretty decent amount. That's a good chunk of yards. And if Northwest is going to come out and really exploit that and win this game, they're going to have to shut down essentially both sides of the ball, obviously, but there's so many different ways that they have to shut down Ferris State versus Grand Valley. Grand Valley was really a passing team, like Justin said, so if they pressure the quarterback like they did, that's how they won the game. But here, you're going to have to make sure that your front men are going to break through the line and not allow big rushers, and you also got to make sure that they break through and pressure the quarterback, force little check down passes that allow for tackles for loss or no gains, and then also force interceptions, force them to throw deep into coverage, and really exploit the quarterback that in the way that they need to. Otherwise, this is going to be a shootout game where it's a 35-31 like Ferris State and Grand Valley was earlier in the year. So we'll see what happens.
There's only a total of 54 yards differential for both sides, so technically this is kind of a close matchup game, and both the offenses are the exact same way. There may be a little bit more weapons on the other side than the other, but still this is a very comparable side to where this might match up very evenly for both sides, and we'll just see how it goes throughout this game played later on today. Taking a switch over to the defensive side, as Northwest, the edge of giving up only 264 yards, as well as their rushing yards. The defense right here for Northwest cleans the side on the tail of the tape. Northwest defense is going to come in here very strong like they did against Grand Valley, and they might do the exact same thing as they did to Grand Valley last week.
Yeah, and one stat that kind of sticks out to me, other than the normal, rushing yards and points and stuff like that, is the third down percentage that they're allowing. Ferris State allows 42% of their third downs to be converted into first downs, while Northwest is only allowing about 25% of those thirds down to be converted into first downs. So that's something we might want to keep an eye on, as if Ferris or Northwest are able to get those stops on third downs, whoever's going to be able to get the opposing offense off the field better is going to be a big kind of key factor in this game, to where if you can get your defense, which is your best unit for Northwest, I believe their defense is as good as their offense was last game. Their defense, I think, is their best unit, and getting them on the field and getting them off the field to get them some rest, I think it's going to be a big factor in this game.
Yeah, Northwest defense, we preach every week, is that they really know how to attack an offense in a way that no other team really does that we've seen so far. I mean, if you go back to that Grand Valley game, I mean, we keep talking about it. They really just shut them down in a way that was really unseen. I mean, to go out and only allowed 17 points to such a high caliber passing offense was really incredible to watch. I mean, coming into this Ferris State game, though, we're talking about how they're so balanced. That's something the Northwest defense is definitely going to have to look at on film, practice during the week. Make sure that there's different weapons for them to attack your defense and really break up your rush game. They're going to make sure that they don't allow the front guys, your DNs, to get in, or your defensive tackles to break through the line and force that pressure. So Northwest defense is definitely going to have to make sure they're ready for that and try and find different ways that Ferris State maybe not is prepared for.
As Northwest defense, very strong once again at Grand Valley last week. Personally, I feel like they're going to keep that carried on over, because technically they're doing the exact same thing going back up to Michigan, just a different driving area, and I feel like they'll be fine. The weather even will be fine for them, because, I mean, they kind of adapted to it a little bit before the game and for so on. As here, we want to still talk to Rich Wright as at the student luncheon, the media luncheon, excuse me, and so here's Coach Wright more on the game, the matchup.
They have so many weapons. They're going to be in 10 personnel predominantly, so they're two slots, both run with the football. They've got a talented back, and then the quarterback's back there. By the way, they throw it around pretty good too. So, it adds to some dimensions and stretches you out defensively, but we feel like we've got a plan in place, and now it's just a matter of, getting through the week and paring some things down and trying to be sound against everything that Ferris brings to the table.
So that was Coach Wright more on the matchup against Northwest and Ferris State up in Big Rapids, Michigan. As right now, there's some players for both sides that are to stand out for Northwest and Ferris State. So who is the guy you're looking for the most, both sides, if you want, Justin?
I think I'm going to start with Caldwell. I'm going to go away from Strayhorn. I know he had obviously the huge game, but I think Caldwell is going to be a big key in this game. Had over 200 all-purpose yards against UCM, and then 143 rushing yards against Grand Valley State. I think if they're able to keep him going, it's going to give Strayhorn that opening he needs, to where he can be the speed guy, he can be the all-purpose back, and Caldwell can be that kind of that bruiser in the middle and get the yards that he needs to get to kind of wear this Ferris State defense down. And then on the Ferris State side, you got to look at their quarterback. I mean, this guy, he's got over 2,000. He's got 2,453 yards passing with 23 touchdowns, and then he's got over 1,000 yards rushing with 20 touchdowns on the ground. So he's combined for 43 touchdowns, along with only 5 interceptions and 3 lost fumbles. So 7 turnovers overall. And so you got to look at their quarterback. If you're able to stop him, then you're going to have a very successful day. If he's able to get going, either whether it be on the ground or through the air, it is going to be a challenging day for the Bearcats.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the defensive side for Northwest. I really look for Ben Altoff, SQ, and Jack Richards to have another big game. We've been preaching that if Northwest is going to win this game, you got to shut down that quarterback. And with a quarterback of that caliber, that's going to be really tough. That's going to be the first real test, I feel like, for Northwest defense. And I think if Altoff, Richards, and SQ really step up to the plate the way that they have been all year, they're going to shut down this quarterback, and they're a number 1 ranked defense for a reason. They really prove themselves every week, and I think those 3 guys are going to be a big key for Northwest. as far as Ferris State, I'm going to have to agree with Justin. That quarterback is going to be something to watch. That there's not many quarterbacks you see in college football with 2,400 yards passing and over 1,000 yards rushing. That is Tim Tebow-esque. So, to see something like that is really going to be a big test for Northwest, and I think he's going to be the key player for Ferris State.
What I like to look at for the players are Anthony Lane, Jack Richards, and Eskew. As Jack Richards had 2 interceptions last game against Grand Valley, and he's that type of player that when he gets hot and he gets on a rhythm, he's this guy that you need to watch out for. And the fact that really didn't mention Anthony Lane that much last game, that's a good thing. If you aren't mentioned about like a certain player doing something towards you or him maybe a defensive play that went up, that's really good because that means right there you are playing lockdown defense on that side, and which is very something that I like the most. Defense is what I like watching, and with Austin Eskew getting 3 sacks last game, which very helpful. The pass rush for Northwest is really good. Maybe force some throws. Maybe force their quarterback out of the pocket. See what he can do on the run. Because technically we haven't seen that yet this season with another mobile quarterback. There's a lot in the MIAA, but nothing compared to this as we're going up against Ferris State. As I'm excited for this game later on today to see what can happen through both sides. There's also other games going on as well as it is. And the regional game as Indianapolis are taking Ouachita Baptist at 12 as well. So another big matchup to see who Northwest could possibly play or Ferris State could possibly play after this game.
It's a very big matchup to see who comes out of this region. I think that Indianapolis kind of beating Fort Hays the way they did 38-17 last week was a big win for them, and I thought Fort Hays would give them a little bit more of a challenge in that. I thought it would be a one-score, 3-point kind of game. I think they proved that they're a legit threat to go into Ouachita and kind of give them a challenge. Ouachita is an interesting team. Haven't shown a whole lot of kind of balance this year. They've been more of a run team. Harding played them early on in the year, so kind of give a judge on that. The way Harding played Ferris, they beat Harding 7-3, so it was a very close game, and I think this will be another very close game as kind of bouncing off of what we've been talking about with Ferris and Northwest.
Yeah, I think Ouachita Baptist earned their number 1 spot. They played really good football all year, and so did Indianapolis. There's a reason that they're moving on to the second round, and they proved it against Hays. I think that Northwest and Ferris probably aren't going to have their eyes too much on this game because they got to worry about each other in the first place. But I'm sure that Rich Wright's got a close eye on what's going on between those two teams, and that's really going to come down to who's the better top dog in this region, who's got the higher powered offense and who's got the defense that can shut them down, and we'll see what happens.
So Indianapolis is taking Ouachita Baptist at 12. That's when kickoff will happen. The winner will take on the winner of Northwest and Ferris State, as there's going to be so much on the line for both sides, and it's another exciting as Northwest is still the road dogs. They're going to be the road dogs throughout this run, as a lot can happen these next few hours, as kickoff is going to be coming around the corner here pretty soon, as we're going to kick it back to Coach Wright at the media luncheon, as he's going to talk more about the upcoming matchup.
Ferris is a fantastic football team. They've got a lot of really good athletes, and it's just, I don't think anybody realizes till you're in our position repeatedly year after year after year how hard it is to be the hunted when you're put up as the number 1 seed all the time. And it's fun to be in this position. It's fun to be we call it playing with house money. We're a 6th seed. We're going to go wherever they tell us to go, and we're going to show up and we're going to play football. The good part is that we're the thing that we've been able to do that makes our team dangerous, I think, is we've improved every week. And when we've had setbacks, we've come back stronger as a group. And that's a testament to our senior class and our captains and our leadership within our football team. So we are playing with more confidence, but a lot of that is just embracing that underdog mentality.
once again, kickoff is at 12 as it is in Big Rapids, Michigan. You can listen to the game as on Bearcat Radio Network, and there's also a TV online stream on BearcatSports.com that Ferris State is putting on. Once again, Northwest is taking on Ferris State, and it's just about a few minutes from now, about 30 minutes as kickoff is at 12. So thank you, Justin Quick and Nolan Brooks, for coming on. As I'm Kramer Sansone, and this was the Student Media Tailgate Show.